Good evening and welcome one and all to this, the 11th episode of KBTV, the Kennington Bioscope's virtual edition, provided, we hope, for your home viewing delight, diversion and entertainment, programmed and produced by our team, whilst most of us are still denied the opportunity for live in-venue events such as the ones we would have been regularly hosting at the Cinema Museum in London over these past several months. And thank you for joining us in our online endeavours. And thank you to the EYE Filmmuseum in particular for allowing us to bring you tonight's spooky, tricksy silent film show with its specially selected content, perfect for a chillier autumnal atmosphere and poised as we are on the eve of Halloween. So keep cosy and draw closer, for things may be about to go bump in the night. Spanish film director Segundo de Jamón was treading the path of trick photography for Pathé Frères that had already been well ploughed by pioneering Georges Méliès, le père des effets spéciaux, starting in 1896, 10 years prior to the first of the two films we're about to see, helmed by Ramon, L'Antre de la Sorcière, The Witch's Lair, also known by the title of The Bewitched Shepherd from 1906, and Physique Diable, no translation needed, from 1912. Both Ramon and Méliès would be rapidly wrapping up production of this kind of filmic fare within the following year, when the market at last dropped out of the bottom of their trick bottles and cinema-going sensibilities had turned cold to these servings of fantastical and colourful creations, with French audiences instead growing hungry for homegrown serials, film serials that is, those by Fayod for instance, Fantomas, Udex and Les Vampires, followed by a multiplicity of historical and literary adaptations before the debt to film culture was acknowledged and paid publicly, in part to Georges Méliès at least, his work having been recently embraced and celebrated by the Surrealists and seeing him awarded the Légion d'honneur in 1931. For Ramon, though, he produced his first trick film in 1903, at that point relocating from Barcelona to Paris, having commenced his filmmaking career back at home with some actualités shot around the Spanish city. Segundo, with the help of his French actress wife Julienne Mathieu, who'd brought him into the Pathé stable with her career with the studios, started as an agent for the company in Spain. And then together in Paris they developed the Pathé Colour or Pathé Chrome stencil colouring process, patented in 1905, utilised in its final instances in our own Elstree Calling in 1930, and used even considerably later than that by Surrealist compatriot Louis Buñuel for his Mexican-made Robinson Crusoe of 1954. And after the bulk of the French-based photo trickery was done for Ramon, for he would go on to have a hand in visual effects for films such as Italian epic Gabrysch and also for Abel Gance's Napoleon, he returned in 1912-13 to a smattering of Spanish documentary films with which his career had commenced. Now, Ramon may have been sidelined by history as a mere Méliès wannabe, but the Spanish surrealists at least almost certainly paid homage, as even though the influence of his wonderfully colourful 1912 film Superstition Andalouse, which I urge you to seek out, may not be directly apparent in the notorious 1929 film Le Chien Andalou, incidentally the year in which Segundo passed away at the age of 57, there are certainly surrealist imaginings in it that seem to me could have swayed Buñuel and Salvador Dali's imagery. There are knives swirled around the head of one person in Segundo's film, and strange, possibly artistically influential and striking human-animal hybrid creations. And if you happen to look at some photos of Segundo de Ramon, you'll see that he does sport a very stylised signature moustache and looks to be the possessor of a distinct and strong personality. I'll leave you to decide if that senior Spanish señor had a bigger influence on some surrealists than has been apportioned in times past. Anyway, we can certainly enjoy some of his work now, accompanied for you live by Cyrus Gabrysch, followed by another earlier hand-stenciled trick film from France, whose director is unfortunately unknown, but who leaves us in no doubt that it is never wise to ignore a request for help from a lady who crosses your path. And I'm very glad that John Sweeney has helped us out by providing a pre-record, both musicians easing our passage this evening as we tiptoe in and out of these early cinematic hellscapes. Welcome back, and thank you to Cyrus and John for transporting us safely from the jaws of hell. And for our main film, we're embarking on a journey of a different kind, but one still filled with mystery and suspense. Der Geheimnisvolle Klub, The Mysterious Club, from 1913, is an early German cinematic adaptation of Robert Louis Stevenson's short tales of detective fiction, penned in 1878 and published in 3 parts in the London Magazine from June to October of that year, later published together in 1882 as The Suicide Club for the Stevenson story collection, The New Arabian Nights. The tales within the Suicide Club have been oft adapted for both stage and screen, with the first part, the story of the young man with the cream tarts, providing the slightly more savoury filling than the title implies for what can sometimes turn out to be very loose interpretations indeed of Stevenson's text. The first film version was produced in 1909 by David Walk Griffith for the American and Mutoscope Biograph Company, and as a split reel of just 4 minutes, The Suicide Club was made into an unlikely comedy caper starring Barry O'More and Violet Mercereau, with both Owen Moore and Mack Sennett appearing as members of said club. In 1914, the year following the German version we're about to see, Maurice Elvey directed the earliest British production of the story, starring Montague Love and Elizabeth Risdon. And in 1919, the Germans had a crack at it again, this time as part of a highly stylised anthology film, Unheimliche Geschichten, Eerie Tales, directed by Richard Oswald, in which the 4th part is dedicated to the Suicide Club, starring Conrad Veidt as its president, Anita Berber as his sister, and Reinhold Schunzel as the detective who discovers a macabre secret society, only to be chosen as their next victim via a card game. And it's this key part of the story which has provided the inspiration for so many adaptations right up to the present day. Oswald's was the last of the silent versions, but it was his own remake in 1932 which was the first of the sound era. Tonight's 1913 version, as I already mentioned, is a German production, but I'm delighted when we're so used to seeing in our online screenings selections from the collections of the Netherlands EYE Filmmuseum without actually seeing the home country depicted from its valuable holdings of international film, that on this occasion we're not tricked but treated to some sightseeing of the Netherlands itself, as the film was shot on location in the city of Rotterdam. And we're also treated to a trip to the popular beach resort of Scheveningen, which is about a 25-minute car ride from Rotterdam. The settings provide a dynamic backdrop to this telling of Stevenson's tale, with the florid name of his main character changed from Prince Florizel of Bohemia and his associate Colonel Geraldine to Gerhard Byrne and an unnamed detective. Also, a different twist on the story is introduced in this version, which allows for some excellent sleuthing, sneaking around and chase sequences on a variety of conveyances. Gerhard Byrne, who is sent a letter regarding his brother, which sets him off on his travels, is played by Fred Sawyer, an Austrian director and writer who acted in stage rep and films in the earlier part of his career and specialised later in directing comedies, including 2 highly successful German films starring Danish comic duo Pat and Patterson, with whom some of you may be familiar. The director, who is also one of the stars of this film, Joseph Delmont, playing Van Gelden, basically Mr. Money, whose part will become clear as you watch, is one of those many amazing characters involved in early filmmaking. Born as Josef Polak in Loveen, Austria in 1873, one of 16 children born to Moses and Rezi, who also later changed their names, he trained as a performer from a young age, becoming a trapeze artist, working in a travelling circus. He then diverted from that path for a spell, training as a metal worker, before rejoining the circus as an animal trainer and, yes, a lion tamer, I love it, which brought him into the arena of world travel. And in 1901, he visited the USA, working as a manager of an animal business, spent some of his spare time at the Flickers and decided he'd like to get in on that act as well, seeing a flourishing market therein, full of opportunities for a spirited and active man such as himself. He started with Vitagraph in 1903, making one-reel westerns, progressing to slightly longer subjects within the next few years. Returning to Vienna in 1910, he was the cameraman on what is now known as the oldest complete surviving Austrian feature, 1911's Der Müller und sein Kind, before moving on to Berlin and starting to star in and direct a series of adventure films which often featured exotic animals, as that was obviously an area of interest and expertise for him. Hence, you will see a pet orangutan in this film. Although his acknowledged list of films ends in 1924, I found evidence in the US trade journals and later film catalogues of a documentary film he made concerning his main love, Wild Animals in the Films, in 1925, perhaps being a collection he'd edited together of animal appearances in his own films. The trade press, noting this interesting character and world traveller, ran a piece on him in early 1914 as he passed back through the US from Europe on his way to make films in Panama. And they noted that his recent German pictures made for the Berlin Bioscope company, such as Nemesis, Black Powder and The Red Mask, had been well received there in the US. They quoted his views on the movies, where he commented, having made a study of what was popular: "We know that life, as it is lived by us and all around us, is not full of happy endings. People want to see life portrayed as it actually is, not as it ought to be." He fought in the First World War, with the US magazine Moving Picture World again reporting on his movements in May 1916, informing their readers that he was returning to the Italian front after a few weeks' furlough in Berlin, and was at that time the officer of a machine gun corps. Joseph Delmont survived the war and went on to make in 1919, in the start of that extremely creative, liberal and imaginative period engendered by the Weimar period, an important film called The Outcasts, or The Ritual Murder, an attempt to warn the public about the dangers of anti-Semitism. After he ended his film career, he wrote newspaper articles as well as adventure, crime and science fiction short stories and novels, before passing at only 61 years of age in 1935, but having done a seriously good bit of living. As if the dynamic Joseph Delmont wasn't enough of a character to be housed in this one film, he worked several times with actress Ilse Bois, who plays the charming daughter of the consul Verstraeten, whom provides Rotterdam-based assistance in the story, and who is also the romantic co-star to Fred Sawyer. Ilse, born in 1896, was the elder sister to Kurt Bois, an actor with whom many of you will be familiar, perhaps if you may not even realise it, with a lifetime of screen work which still stands as containing the longest filmmaking career of anyone that has yet lived. Even some 29 years since he passed, he still holds the record as the longest serving film actor the world has yet known, which spans some 80 years of performances from 1907 to 1987. His last feature was Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire, but he appears also as the pickpocket in Michael Curtiz's Casablanca, starred in A Silent Curtiz, The Golden Butterfly, which we showed at the Cinema Museum 2 years ago, and is also noted in silence as the eccentric bandmaster in Ernst Lubitsch's The Oyster Princess. And eccentric was certainly the key to the early careers of both Kurt and his older sister Ilse, for she was the first performer in the family, their father having abandoned his wife and 4 children while Kurt was still small. Ilse helped to support the family by appearing on stage and in films, and she was a talented young comedienne and comedy dancer. Both Kurt and Ilse would later become regulars on stage, displaying their talent for movement and music at the Cabaret der Komiker, the cabaret of comedians known as the Caddico, alongside such stars as Margot Leon and statuesque comedic actor Kurt Göron. Although Kurt would carry on his film career for decades, Ilse's ended in the late 20s when she played a very excellent and eccentrically stylised part in an Anglo-German co-production, a film which went down so well at our Silent Railway Day in 2018, Der Geisterzug, the Ghost Train of 1927, playing Miss Ophelia Bourne, who becomes inebriated in the station waiting room and commences a comical, eccentric dance. Being Jewish, she fled Berlin for Vienna in 1933, then made for Paris, where Kurt would soon join her. In 1934, she made a guest appearance in the USA, also mounting a revue in London the following year before emigrating to the US in 1936 with her husband, Kurt Robitschek, founding another Caddico comedy theatre there in New York, where she performed, also appearing in classical theatre. After the war, she settled in London, where she remarried after losing her husband, and she lived out her days here, and unlike her brother, never once returning to Germany. So here we have again incredible lives of self-invention and travel through choice and bare necessity. The stories of those who appear in silent films never cease to amaze me. And we have the live music from the hands of Costas Fotopoulos now to astound you as we join him for this tale of the mysterious club. got my mic. I said I wouldn't, and I did. Thank you so much, Costas. Well, wasn't that exciting? Thank you so much. It was wonderful. And thank you to all the musicians tonight, to John Sweeney for his recording, and to Cyrus, Gabrysch and Costas Fotopoulos for both playing live and handling the live streams and producing the show for you here. And don't forget, the show is produced free to you here on YouTube, and you can watch again and catch up to on the previous 10 episodes. But it would be wonderful if you could find a few pennies in your pocket to buy us a coffee on our coffee donation page, the link for which you'll find here on our YouTube page and also on our Twitter page. And while I'm making an appeal for funds towards our future programming, I must urge you, if you haven't already, to look up the crowdfunder for the Cinema Museum, which is currently underway and needing very much to reach a certain target by this weekend in order to qualify for match funding from Lambeth Council. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Cinema Museum, as I know there are many of you who are watching from extremely far and wide indeed within the wonderful silent film community, the Cinema Museum is our regular home for events and for many other groups and activities besides, and is the amazing place you see in the inserts for this show each time in excerpts from a film made by our own Cyrus Gabrysch, which is a place in need of help, however big or small, if it is to be able to reimagine and reopen as soon as possible. So we thank you for any donations you feel able to give us and or to the museum. And you will find details of their crowdfunder appeal on their website and Twitter page. Our heartiest thanks go to the EYE Filmmuseum for their generosity in allowing us to show films from their collections, for which we are very grateful indeed. And also for the assistance of curator Elif Rongen-Kaynakçi. Thank you, Elif. Huge thank yous to Todd Higginson for all his work in programming and preparing the films for tonight's show and for managing the live chat box below. And thank you to all the chattees within. And many thanks to John Sweeney for all his support and efforts for this episode too, and to the rest of the Bioscope team for their contributions. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed our spooky and mysterious KBTV Halloween special, and I wish most sincerely that you all stay safe and snug, and promise me faithfully that you won't have nightmares. Good night.
Baby, sure I love her, baby, precious baby, did I do?